Welcome back to Bespoke in the Burbs. It is episode 8, and on today's episode, we are going to figure out the lighting, electrical, and furniture plan. That's right, you heard me right, furniture plan. Now, way ahead of time. Why? Because they relate, and you're gonna see how. Hi, I'm Ramsin Khachi. I'm the founder and principal of Khachi Design Build and Stone Lab Surfaces. I've been in the design and construction industry for over 25 years. I've decided to do an entire series around my own personal real estate investment. I'll be taking a builder's custom-like home and then taking it to an entirely new level.
Welcome to Bespoke in the Burbs.
Let me give you a recap of where we're at right now. Now, the kitchen design is done, and I feel great about that. Now, there's some refinements to be done, but we know the direction we're going in. The bathrooms have all been designed, and that's complete, so that sets us up for the finishing details. The house is framed, and that is why it's so important right now to get onto the electrical layout and some of the other components that are going to end up inside the walls. Now, last week, I had a rep from New Heat out to the house to walk through all the bathrooms because we're going to use the New Heat vent system to heat all the floors in the bathrooms. Why? I love the system. It is so easy to use. You get a perfect fit. It's designed for the space. You get even heating underneath your floor tiles, and the system is built in the factory for your bathroom. So there's no guesswork of figuring things out on site, how you space the wires. It's all factory designed for that space, which is really important. It gives it longevity, great performance. It's very thin, so it doesn't affect the height of the space. We're going to put a programmable thermostat on each system, and you're going to have remote access to that system. You'll be able to program it and have it go on when you need to, so you get great comfort. What I love about in-floor heating, especially the New Heat vent, is that you can zone your spaces. So now you don't have to warm up the entire house in the wintertime. If you get up early, you can warm up that bathroom and you go get ready without really heating the entire space, and off you go. Everybody else may wake up 2 hours later, which means you can then prolong the start of that heating cycle and save yourself money. It's quick, it's easy, and that's why we're using it. So it's designed, we know what the layout is in all the bathrooms. We're also heating all the shower stalls. There's nothing worse than having a nice warm floor and then stepping onto a cold one. So you want to make sure that you don't create that scenario. If the bathroom floor is heated, we walk into the shower and it's heated as well, so you get nice consistency. So we also met with Kelly about the alarm system and the cameras and some of the low voltage stuff in the house. So Kelly from APCO Alarms has made some suggestions, and we're going to go with a full out alarm system that's going to include glass break sensors, motions, contacts on all the doors and windows, but also smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors throughout the house, in addition to the ones that the electrician puts in as per code. The reason I like that is that if you have a smoke alarm go off, or if you have a fire, or if you have a carbon monoxide issue and the smoke alarm or the carbon monoxide detector goes off, the monitoring station gets notified. So now you've got somebody helping you on the outside. Whether you're home or not, doesn't matter. They will notify the authorities, somebody will come out and take care of things, and that is so important. It actually saves me on my insurance costs down the road. So from a safety perspective and a cost perspective, it's a great thing to have. Now we're going to move on to lighting layouts. There's a lot to think about, and I mentioned furniture plan. You can't do a lighting plan without knowing where furniture is going to sit within your space. And this goes back to me always saying to people, get a designer involved way up front, because all this stuff needs to be considered. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a house that's not well lit, not properly lit, and it's going to create obstacles for you as you go on to finishing and decorating later. So right now, we just need a rough idea as to where furniture will go. And I'm going to start looking at each space and understanding how I'm going to decorate it. Now, some areas I'm not too sure about. Family room, I don't know if I'm going to go with 2 sofas or if I'm going to go with a sectional. So I want to leave myself as much opportunity as I possibly can. Secondly, we want to acknowledge the fact that this is a production built house. There is limitations as to how much customization I want to do in this house with regards to lighting. I want to create the proper levels of contrast within the space to give me the drama and the interest I want. I want it well lit. it, I want to address all the three aspects of lighting, which is ambient light, which is general light throughout the house. I want to have proper task lighting, and I want to have really nice accent lighting. So we're going to address all those three elements. So let's get right to it. Let's look at the floor plans and let's look at some of these individual spaces. I want to touch on a few just to give you some lessons. When you're designing your lighting layout, you want to take into consideration the room characteristics. Architectural elements, whether it's wall units or furniture or cabinetry or even bulkheads. So we know we're going to have a bulkhead that's going to carry around the room here, especially where the cabinetry is, and it's going to carry around the room. That's going to be a permanent element in this space. So we want to make sure that we take that into consideration. But what we also want to do is take into consideration the ceiling height. That's going to dictate how that lighting is going to affect that room. So I'm going to draw in my bulkhead that's going to go around, and you'll notice that that bulkhead carries in front of this servery area. So the servery area is going to have a lower ceiling. That kind of identifies that space a little bit differently than the rest of the kitchen. Kind of says it's a different space on its own, but it's open to the kitchen, so it gives it its own characteristics and its own perspective there. So we're going to just draw this bulkhead in. That lets us know the extent of our pot lights and where we can carry them so that we don't get too close to the wall, because if we don't take into consideration this bulkhead, we might put our pot lights a little bit too close to that bulkhead and then the effects will be off. So this is the area we have to work with. Now I like to lay out all the pot lights first. That's going to create our ambient lighting throughout. Now when it comes to kitchen spaces, I like those lights to be right in the middle. So using trace paper over top is a great way to experiment and then be able to draw things in and correct them if you need to. Now I don't like to create a runway feel. I don't like it to be too structured because I want some randomness. Too structured is no good. All of a sudden you see the pot light layout just lay out in linear lines, and I don't love that. But we do need lighting in this space. We do want to center it within that cooktop area, but I also want to make sure that I end up centered on this area. So when I lay these out, I might move this one over, move this one back a little, and I'll roughly lay them out so that I can then end up with my lighting roughly where I want. And then I'll put another trace paper over top. So this gives me my general lighting in this space. Then we've got this area that's an eating area. I considered putting a hanging light in this space, but then I want to have the flexibility to move this table wherever I want. I don't want to be fixed underneath that light. So I may just drop more pot lights in this space, and then we've got our family room area. So then here we're also going to drop in some additional pot lights here, and that kind of lays out the space. Now we get a certain quantity of pot lights. We don't have to use them all up in the one area. We're going to scatter them throughout the house, but there's areas where you really don't need pot lights, and I'll get into those later. This family room area has the seating area. We're going to have 2 couches, possibly a sectional like I said, so we want to create some flexibility, and then I'd love to have a hanging light down in this space here. You'll notice that we've got some side tables and table lamps there. If we go with a sectional, we'd end up with a table lamp there. If we go with 2 couches, maybe we'll end up with a table lamp here. Maybe we'll put one here on either side. Nevertheless, these will have to plug in somewhere. So I'm going to put a receptacle back here, and these will plug in, and I'm going to run this receptacle and switch it separately, but we'll get to that in a second. Then we've got this fireplace area that comes out, and you've got this mantle, and you've got these 2 mirrors on either side, and we're going to put a wall sconce on each. This becomes kind of our accent lighting in the background, and as we come across, we've got some accent lighting in this area over top of the island as well. So whether these are hanging lights or linear hanging lights, doesn't matter, that's to be selected. So this kind of lays out our lighting area in here, and then we need some more ambient light in this space. We've got already, as part of our cabinet drawing, some secondary accent lights here. We've got our under cabinet lights here. And then we've got our coffee station that's also going to have some accent lighting inside. And then all of a sudden we start to create that balance. Then we look at other areas and then all the switching. Then we move on to some other spaces. We've got this ante room here. I'm going to put 2 pot lights in this space. One will not be enough. And we want to consider the spacing within our pot lights. You don't want them too far apart. You don't want them too close together. It is 10 feet high, so you'll get good spread on those pot lights and you'll get good general lighting. We've got our powder room here, which I've got the fan drawn here. I'm gonna move the fan to the middle, and I'm actually gonna put a pot light over top of the toilet. Kind of creates a little bit of accent light over there, and then I'm going to put a wall sconce on either side. I love having side lights on a vanity because the light reflects off the mirror and onto the person, so it gives you nice even lighting. This mudroom area will probably end up with one light fixture in the middle here, and this is a perfect example of not wasting pot lights in this space, because I can easily put a linear light here and give great lighting to this space. No need to waste our pot light counts in there. Then we get into the foyer, same thing. I can do a beautiful chandelier in the foyer and avoid using up pot lights in this area. Then we get into the dining room. Obviously we need a nice hanging light in the center, but I love to accent that with some secondary lighting. Now we've got a round table drawn in, but I think I've made my mind up that I'm gonna reuse an existing table that is rectangular. So that table's gonna go here, and our seating's gonna carry around like this. So I'm gonna put in a pot light here, one here, one here, one here. What I do want to do is start drawing in the architectural elements that are going to go on the ceiling and some of those details to make sure that these pot lights relate well to that detail on the ceiling. We do have our bulkhead, but we want to go a little further with this. Having said all that, let's throw another trace paper on top and start cleaning this area up. So then we can just clean up our lighting layout and then get into how all these things are going to connect and switch on and off. Okay, so now we're going to pull out the old piece of trace, and then we end up with the new. We're going to line it up, and you'll see we've got all our lighting laid out in the right places. And then we've got this area where it goes downstairs here and it goes upstairs, and I'm gonna have one light above that's hanging, that's gonna kind of transition into this space. And then when we get up to upstairs, we'll deal with the pot lights up there. And then we've got our garage lighting as well, and we've got 4 fixtures on the ceiling. And with regards to our garage space, we know already that we have a landing coming down here, so I know there's going to be some steps, and I need a light fixture here. So there we go. Now, when you walk in, how do you function with turning these lights on and off? And that's what you have to think about. When you walk in here or when you walk in here, how do you switch things on and off? Now, what we like to do is look at all the groupings of light that we want to control together. Actually, I might pull these in a little bit tighter, but I'll do that on my final drawings when I get on to putting it onto AutoCAD. So then we know that this grouping is 1, because if we're cooking, we want this area to light up. So we start to look at how these kind of run off the same circuit branch, and they're connected, and they'll go to a switch right here. That's one switch. Then we know we're going to run these together onto another switch. That's 2 switches. We know we want these circuits together running to another switch, and then we've got these 4, and I forgot my chandelier, so we're going to go loop these together and come around to another switch. Then we want to make sure we operate those receptacles that are back here behind the couch off a switch as well. So with a switch you can turn on your table lamps. So this receptacle and this receptacle, we'll loop this over and then come there, and then we have these 2 wall sconces that will also come here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 switches, but that's not all. We've got this area here. We're going to need another switch to operate those. And then we've got our accent lighting, which is our cabinet lighting, which is there, our under cabinet lighting here, which is there. And then we've got our coffee station with more lighting, so we need another switch to operate those. And We have to know how those are going to be operated. They're going to have a transformer. We're going to put the transformer on top of this cabinet, so we're going to have to make sure there's a receptacle that is switched. So I'll do those on all the drawings later. But you can see how this all starts to lay out, and we've got banks of switches. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 switches on this wall. What a nightmare. How ugly would that be? Okay, we'll address that in a second, but let's carry on here. And then we've got these two to light up. We've got a foyer light to light up. We've got our outside portico light, plus any lights on top of the garage that we want to deal with to light up, and then our dining room. So let's look at, dining room is going to be managed here, where we got our pot lights switched here, and we have another switch here that'll run this center light. So 2 switches for this area. Then we need a switch to run this guy. We need a switch to run these 2. We need a switch here to run this. We need a switch here to run these guys. So again, you can see 4 switches at the front door, and that's not all, because we've got plugs outside that are going to be switched for things like Christmas lights or holiday lights and things like that. So we've got another switch here that's going to run these 2 lights, or receptacles. So all of a sudden on this wall, I again have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 switches. So, but this starts to really give you a sense of where your lights start to fall into place, taking into consideration ambient light, task light, and accent lighting on the sides. Now, if this was a true custom build, we'd get into some uplighting, some additional lighting, which gets a little bit more complicated, but with a track house or a mass-produced house, it gets a little too complicated. We're not going to go down that line. We also have a switch out here, the garage, the mudroom, and all those areas. So we're going to run a switch to operate these, and we're going to make it a 3-way switch to kind of maybe shut that off as you're going out as well. And then we've got a switch to run this. So we've got to consider some more details here. But let's get on to some of the other floors. On the second floor, with all the bedrooms, you've got the principal bedroom here. So what we want to do is make sure we have a hanging light right down the center. This is one of those areas where I don't necessarily feel the need to put pot lights. I think if you get a good light that gives you adequate lighting, it'll be enough. And then we're going to switch that here, and then you've got all your other areas. So we've got the walk-in closet. As you walk in, you want to make sure your switch is here, and we want to put some kind of lighting here. So I'd love to put some linear lighting here, and if that's going to happen that way, if these are low voltage or line voltage, meaning 110 volts versus 24 volts, if we're going to go into a 24 volt system, the transformer is going to have to sit somewhere else and plug in. So why don't we do that? Why don't we run this with low voltage wiring and run that here, and then put a plug that's connected to this switch, and then everything can sit on top of this cabinet. Then you've got your ensuite here. This ensuite, lots happening in here, because number one, we've got a rain head. Have to consider that. So you got a rain head right down the center. Well, where do the lights go? When we have a rain head, I love to center 2 lights on either side. Then we've got some general lighting here, so we'll probably put some pot lights, maybe just run 3 down the center here, probably move this fan over and run 3 lights here. And then we've got the vanity area. The vanity is, again, very important. I love to have lights surrounding you. So what I think I will do is go for a wall sconce on either side and 1 in the middle. That gives you good lighting around each person. And then lastly, I'd love to do an accent light over top of the tub. Now, don't necessarily love pot lights over the tub. Even an accent light, I don't want it to have a ton of lighting, because you don't want to be on stage when you're taking a bath. You just want to be able to dim that down and have just accent lighting in that space. Then we got to get into switching. So that's a lot of circuits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circuits. That's 5 switches here. So we got to see how we're going to group those as well. So we'll have 1 switch that will run probably this pot light along with that one. Then we're going to have another switch that'll run the fan. Then we're going to have another switch that will run these pot lights, another switch that will run this light, and then another switch that will run these lights. That's a lot of circuitry. So that's how it all starts to come together, and let's do the rest of these rooms and pull them out. Same concept, single light fixture in each. Again, we don't want to waste all our money and all our pot lights in these areas. We'll do general pot lights in this space. We've got our hanging light here, and that's enough. So I'll probably do one pot light here, maybe two here, and maybe one more here, and then address all of these. So this is one area I want to point out. When you have lights up here like this, you want to make sure that you can control these from downstairs and upstairs. So we'll have a switch here, it'll turn these on, but there'll be another line that goes downstairs that gives you a three-way switch downstairs. Same goes for this guy. We know we have a switch down there that's operating this, but what we want to do is be able to draw one up here to come and put another switch here, three-way, to operate that. Bedrooms are laid out. This bathroom here, we want to put a pot light in the ceiling. We do have our fan that we got to control, but here I'd love to do two pendants that come down from the ceiling, just hanging right here on either side. It'll reflect light off the mirror, and that's a great way to light that. It becomes a little bit different and unique. This one, again, same thing, a pot light right over top of the drain we want to center. Our fan is right here, and we want to make sure we have good adequate lighting here. This is a bathroom that Jaden and Haley are going to use, and I want them to be able to see as they go into the bathroom. So we're going to have a night light system here. We're going to have the mirror floating off the wall, and I'm going to put LED lights all the way around that mirror. So we're going to have one switch that lights the pot light, one switch that lights our fan, we're going to have one switch that lights our LED lighting, and then we're going to put a linear light here on the mirror, so we'll have another switch here that'll light that one. Let's go to this room here, the laundry room. This is our compact laundry upstairs, and a bit of a challenge here because originally the access to the attic space was in this walk-in closet, which is unsightly. I'd rather have it in here. And if that access is gonna sit here with a exhaust fan sitting right there, there's really not a lot of room for lighting. So we gotta look at some creative ways of lighting this space. So as you walk in, the switch is going to be here. We'll do some accent lighting here, either some puck lights in the flyover of the cabinetry or linear lighting underneath the cabinetry. So we'll need a switch here and a low voltage lead that comes out. So these will be run off of this switch. And then we've got this wall that we can utilize. So I think what I will do is actually get some really nice contemporary wall sconces and mount them on this wall. So these will run off another switch. This will give you your general lighting within the space. That's some task lighting there, and that will light up that room. In the basement, a few things to consider. Now this design on here is not complete, and I'll tell you how I want to kind of address all these rooms. So as you come down to this landing area here, again we're going to have a series of three-way switches, meaning one will operate the lights from down here, then when you get to the top of the steps, it'll operate from up there as well, so that as you go up, you can turn the lights off down here. So we're going to have a light in this transitional space. Then I'm going to put a series of pot lights for just some general lighting in this space, and one right here as you come down to the landing, and these will all run from the same circuit. So it'll come here, that'll be a three-way. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna make it a four-way. So we're gonna put it here, and we're gonna put a switch here, and do a four-way. That means there's 3 points that'll control this light. So you can turn it off from here if you go to watch a movie, you can turn it on and off at the bottom of the stairs, and as you go up to the top, you can turn it off at the top when you go to bed. So that's a great way to control all these lights. This is the recreation area, which is gonna be the gym. I have an idea for the ceiling here, so we're gonna have kind of a tray ceiling in this space, and I'm going to show you later how this all comes together. So we're going to have 6 trays, and there's going to be stretched vinyl stretched across the openings, and then I want to backlight it so the entire ceiling glows, which means we need ribbons of LED in here, and each of them is going to be run with LED ribbon in behind, and every one of those is going to need a wire to feed all that LED ribbon. So we're gonna have a switch here to run these, but because these are low voltage, you have to think to yourself, where's the transformer gonna go? This area here is going to be left open because we're not going to have a fireplace, and we know this area is excavated, so we have a door here actually that's going to go into this space. So I think the door will probably open like that, and so I know this area is going to have a bit of a dead space above. We'll put an access panel here, put a plug here, and that's where all the transformers will sit. So this circuit will light that. From here, we'll have low voltage wiring, one for each of them. And I know all these look like scribbles right now, but I will clean all this stuff up, but this is how we start with laying things out. Let's look at the theater. As you walk in, we've got an area here for our switches, but I want multiple layers of light. It's always nice to layer the lighting. You can always create different moods within a space by altering the level and color of each light. So in here, we've got these walls that are built out on an angle, and we're gonna have LED lights that are in behind each one that are gonna light all the way around. Now these are gonna wrap on the ceiling and all the way down. So we're gonna have these angles and come out, and they're gonna wrap all the way down. So all these LED ribbons are gonna light forward and light the room forward away from your eyesight this way. You obviously don't want these on all the time. You want to be able to control them. Then we have our platform, and I think I'm going to bring the platform around this bottom row of seating. So we're going to have some seating here, we're going to have some seating here. We've got lights on either side. I'm going to put some lights in the back of the screen as well, some LED lights. So you've got different layers of light, and then lastly, I'm going to put some step lights here at the front. So all of these will be controlled separately. So another switch for all these lights, and then one more switch here for this light behind our Screen Innovation screen. And that will light up our theater. And then we've got this area here, which is just this craft ironing room, which may transition into a guest bedroom. I don't know yet, but here we're going to keep it very general and keep a ceiling light. Another ceiling light here for the task area. That's important here. Probably switched from this area. Because this is a laundry, it's going to require a fan. So we'll have another switch here. And then because we've got cabinetry, I'm going to consider maybe doing some cabinet lights under here. In this space, the bathroom, I'm going to go with 2 wall sconces here and create a nice look over top of this vanity. And then we've got our other switch that's going to feed our fan, and then we've got another switch that's going to feed our light inside the shower. So all this will get cleaned up as well, and then we need some general lighting. Now, the next step is to clean this up, start putting it into AutoCAD, really get a sense of where the lines are gonna go, how all these are gonna relate. One thing I'm gonna note is that you'll notice that I didn't start putting notions here or notes for all the receptacles. I only put notes on receptacles that I'm particular about, and I let the electrician fill in the rest as he needs to accommodate code, because he has certain guidelines that he has to follow to have a receptacle at every so many feet. I'm going to give him the flexibility to do that, but he knows that this is something I particularly want right underneath here, and that's the information I'm going to give him. So all our wires are in, and you can see all our switches locate all in these spaces, and we do have a lot. So you can see we've got some big banks of switches, a lot of lighting points and a lot of switches to control those lighting sources. Now, one of my pet peeves is having big banks of switches on walls. It really hinders what you do with those walls with regards to artwork, or just aesthetically, it's unappealing. So I've decided I'm going to go with a Radio Raw system from Lutron. It's called Radio Raw 2 Select, and it's a wireless system. Let me explain this to you, and let me explain to you why in this house it makes sense. It's a great system to integrate into an existing home. Now, there's a lot more elaborate systems you can incorporate into a new build, but they get costly. The Radio Raw 2 Select is kind of a happy medium. Gives me all the customization I want, but at an economical price point. And you don't have to do anything complicated with regards to the wiring and the boxes and all those things. So the solution is, let's move all those boxes. Let's get them out of the way. Let's hide them somewhere, because we don't need access to them, because they're all radio controlled. controlled. Now, how do they get controlled? They get controlled by single keypads. So all we need on our walls that are visible to us are keypads. Those keypads will then communicate with all these switches, which are normal dimmer switches or regular switches that have radio frequency chips inside, and they communicate. So just to simplify the system, we're going to put all our banks of switches inside our mudroom in one of the closets. And some other ones are going to go inside the front hall closet. So the dining room switches, the front foyer, outside lighting, all those lights will go inside the front hall closet. Everything for the garage, family room, kitchen will go in the mudroom. They're all hidden. All you'll see outside in the foyer is one keypad. You'll see a keypad in the dining room. You'll see a keypad in the kitchen. Maybe I'll put two because the keypads do several things. Number one, they allow you to create scenes. So with a push of a button, you can have entertain and a whole bunch of stuff will happen. You can have breakfast or cook and you push cook and a whole bunch of stuff happens. It basically tells all those switches to turn on at preset levels with the amount of dimming that you preset and create, and then you have that perfect scene set up. Or you can simply say away and it just shuts everything off, which is fantastic. We're going to go a step further and we're going to explore some of the other elements from Lutron, which is things like this motion sensor. I love this thing. This is brilliant. I'm going to incorporate this everywhere. I'm going to put it in the mudroom, for instance, so when you first walk in, you don't have to fumble for switches. It just senses that you walked in and a whole bunch of things can happen. Lights will light your path to the house where you would normally go. I'm also going to use these actually in every bathroom. Why? The builder is putting a hot water recirculating line in. That basically is a pump that circulates hot water throughout the house all the time so that when you go to your bathroom on the top floor, you get hot water right away. Well, I don't want that pump running all the time. So I'm going to put this inside every bathroom. So when you walk in, it picks up your motion, turns the pump on, and gets the water circulating. By the time you get to the shower or the sink, the water, hot water is right there for you. So there's some great creative ways that you can utilize some of these Lutron components to benefit you. And then on top of that, we've got this Pico remote, and it's a tiny little wireless remote with a battery that lasts for years. And it's actually designed so you can put it inside a regular wall plate and have it on a wall. So if there's a place that you don't have a wall switch, this is a great solution. You can add that in. And you can program scenes into this so that in rooms, for instance, that you decide afterwards that you want to have scene controls, you can put this on the wall and have your scenes accessible right there. So there's a lot of flexibility. And speaking of this switch plate, this is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with this Lutron switch system here, this plate system that when I open it, you'll see that the back cover has the screws and then the front cover snaps on and gives me a nice clean finish with a nice fine line around the outside. No screws visible. So you can see why it's so important to get this stuff done ahead of time. Now, to be honest with you, when we do new builds, this is a bit late in the game. I like to get this done even earlier, before the structural design is done. That way I can dictate where all the ceiling joists are so that they never get in the way of our lighting layout. Nevertheless, this is a great start. It gives Rocco what he needs to run all his wires. It makes his job easy and quick. It's going to make him happy. It's going to make me happy. Next step is to get you back on site to show you how all this comes together. So on the next episode, we're going to do some site visits. I'll see you then.